All right, looks like we're live. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Make sure you introduce yourself in the comments. Dean Kulawiri here, and thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know if my audio and video is all good for all of you tuning in. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to bring out my fantastic guest for today, Edward Johnson, and we're going to be talking about, well, he's going to be talking about building a career path in AI. All right, so don't be shy. Feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. Looks like the stream is live. And let me know if my audio. That always happens. All right, sounds good. Looks like we are live. So introduce yourself in the comments, folks. Let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. What's your interest in AI, artificial intelligence? Are you looking to build a career path in this exciting space? Where are you at right now in your career? Feel free to share that in the comments and make sure you introduce yourself. And I'm going to bring Edward out in a couple of minutes. And any questions you have about AI, I'm definitely going to get Edward to respond to all of your questions in building a career path in AI from the comments. So again, make sure you put those questions in the comments. You have your own thoughts about AI as a career path and all that stuff. Hey, definitely want to hear your thoughts about that. So make sure you share with us your thoughts in the comments. All right. So without further ado, folks, I'm going to bring out Edward shortly, but just sorry, hold on. Let me just get something set up here. And we're going to bring Edward on in a couple of minutes. So just an introduction about Edward. And in the meanwhile, feel free to, put your thoughts and introduce yourself in the comments. So Edward is a passionate technologist with many years of leading diverse teams and technological change in capital markets and wealth management sectors across Europe and Asia. He has a chemical engineering degree and a postgraduate business administration diploma from Warwick Business School, a 95% MBA, wow, as well as certifications in entrepreneurship from MIT, AI, project management, and blockchain, CBP, and CFD. People describe Edward as a pure business technology hybrid, and like the rise of the internet and later mobile, he sees AI and blockchain as major components and game changers for the next decade. He recently was part of teams winning 2 competitions in the AI space and believes that great teams can do great things and enable AI to augment rather than displace us. Definitely a very important topic right there. Now, Edward has also mentored and continues to mentor many people in their careers and is committed to contributing his experiences by pro bono, people development, and as a board member. We're definitely going to be asking Edward more about that later on in today's segment. He currently consults and advises fintechs in Toronto and occasionally keeps his German fluent, which is awesome. Fantastic. So without further ado, folks, make sure you give Edward a warm welcome in the comments. And don't be shy, introduce yourself. Hey, Edward, thanks so much for joining us today and really appreciate your time.
Hi, Dean. Great to see you again. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. We talked about this for a few days and so on. So yeah, I really want to get into this. Thanks for bringing me in as a guest.
Awesome. And yeah, and by the way, for context, folks, so for those of you watching and tuning in, myself and Edward have never really met in real life. Like we actually got in touch because of the power of networking and this new virtualized environment that we're in. Shout out to Obi George, who actually introduced myself to Edward, and I spoke at one of the PMI Career Accelerator Program events. I've heard Edward speak. He's a fantastic speaker. So all of you are definitely in for a treat today. So without further ado, Edward, if we can get into today's topic, I mean, in terms of building a career path in AI. Now, Edward, for the viewers tuning in who may not be well versed in this field of AI and maybe not as knowledgeable as some of the others, can you provide a general overview of this field of AI or artificial intelligence and what exactly is it?
Yeah, that's one of the big challenges, actually, because anybody who's watched Terminator will have thought, okay, the world is going to be taken over by robots and everything. It's not really like that. There are a couple of points that people really should be aware of in AI. The first thing is that AI is already here. If you use a spell checker in Google or any of the other things, you're already being used with AI. And just as an anecdote, if now we have a lot of packages and stuff, people are sending things everywhere. Now, right. I'm waiting for something from FedEx. It's about 2 weeks. It's in Mississauga. And right. When I make a call, I'm going to speak to a kind of a voice agent that's going to guide me through. And it right. now asks me to speak in real English. Now, sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it doesn't. But what it's doing is it's pulling my information in and it's analyzing what I say, and it's trying to then guide me through so it can put me through to someone or something. That is another type of AI. So there are two main areas of AI. One is what we call narrow AI, which is where artificial intelligence is used to do very specific tasks. Like I mentioned, the chatbot, maybe it's a voice chatbot, maybe it's a spell checker. So that's one of the things that everyone can probably relate to. And then there's a second part, which is the bigger one called the general AI, which is also known as strong AI. And that's where you have artificial intelligence really mimicking humans. And that can be things like learning systems. For instance, where let's say you have a device at home like a Nest or an Echo or something, it's actually learning to understand you, your voice, your habits, and so on. So that's nearer to general. It isn't perfect general, of course. It's going to get things wrong. But each of these types of AI, what they need and what they rely on is data, lots and lots of data. And so artificial intelligence, and especially machine learning, is about data and then creating models which then can be improved over time.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks for that great overview. Fantastic, Edward. Just a few shout outs here from some of the viewers tuning in. We got BT Nandu in the house. Hey, BT, good to see you here. We got Pavitra. Nice to see you here. We got Roya in the house. Roya says, hello, Dean and Edward.
Hey.
Good to see you here, Roya. We got Pratik I think Pratik has a question. So we're going to get into the question shortly, folks. But make sure you put your questions in the comments. We're going to get into that in the Q&A part. And Edward's going to share his thoughts. Pratik says, great to join the live session. Quick hello to Dean and Edward. Awesome. Good to have you here, Pratik. And we got Nazreen in the house who says, hello, Dean and Edward. Awesome. Good to have you here, Nazreen. So that means now in terms of, everyone's different, Edward, right? I mean, some of us are more so people persons. Some of us love the processes. The rest of us might enjoy tinkering with the machine itself. So what are the opportunities within AI, Edward, for these various preferences for people who are looking to explore this space?
Okay, so the first thing is we're relatively early with AI as technology, and in terms of in companies and in terms of even careers. There are careers being built now that don't even have names yet. So a few of the things, let's just go straight for the tech. If you're into tech, then and you're coding or you want to learn to code, there are opportunities for what they call machine learning engineers who are working with models or building models. There are opportunities for people who are highly academic, who are more data scientists, although the term data scientist has been widened to include lots of things. There are people we call data analysts who used to be the ones who created dashboards or presented data maybe to management and other things. And then there are definitely people who are the cloud engineers who are really swimming in the data at the back end. Because if you have even a bank, there is a lot of data, way too much data, and that needs to be managed. It needs to be organized. You have cybersecurity aspects of AI. So there's lots of opportunities for anyone who gets into cybersecurity. There are lots of opportunities which then fill into the AI space to do with data. There's lots of that. There are also the product managers and project managers. Sometimes the term project manager isn't bandied around too much, maybe as a technical project manager, but it is important to know that all of these things need to be organized. Usually you have to have a start, you'll have an end, and then maybe you'll have an operating kind of side, which is going to run through cycles of doing things with data and building products and building models.
All right, fantastic. So, I mean, from what you're saying, Edward, I mean, obviously there's so many different opportunities within this space, and this space branches into areas such as cybersecurity you mentioned, and just so many different spaces, right? And there's sounds like, I mean, there are definitely options for those of us, whatever our preferences in terms of how we want to get involved in this space. So, I mean, it's just really exciting. Now AI. Now, Edward, which brings me to, AI is obviously very vast. I mean, you clearly gave some great examples here. So how can one decide and any suggestions you have on how we can figure out hey, which parts am I going to go with? Can I, should I not be, spread myself too thin, or do you recommend specialization, or like, what are your thoughts on that, Edward, in terms of figuring out which parts we want to go with?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is it's not a let's just take 10 minutes and code something and then I'm into a job. That doesn't work. Take a medium and longer term outlook. That's your start point to just think about it on a medium longer term. You're going to have to educate yourself.
Yeah.
If you're in a particular domain, I would start off. Maybe I should say it in a different order. Firstly, have a look at your own domain. If you're in finance or accounting, have a look at what works, what doesn't work, what could be improved, and have a look at the data that's involved, and think, okay, that's your start point, because you're an expert maybe in finance.
Yeah.
Then look at, joining a community of people who are more specialized in AI. And there are a number of communities, let's say around Toronto and even globally, and look for case studies. And that will perhaps give you some ideas as to, I've got potential to maybe build a system. I'll give you an example of that. I'm building an e-commerce system, but I don't necessarily have all the expert in e-commerce. But if I can speak to someone who is really strong on e-commerce or retail, that's something that we can both profit from. I can build the AI part, and they can bring in their expertise from the domain. So one is look at your domain. Second, look at then what kind of transferable skills do you have? Are you already coding? Do you need to code? Are you a product manager? And so on and so forth. Those are the main kind of things if you want to specialize. Not everybody can decide to be a cloud engineer on day one. You need, maybe months. So educate yourself. There are lots of online courses, and there are also a number of boot camps. But I would say one of the key things is join a community so you can fast track the advice for doing that.
I love that suggestion, Edward, because it's so great when you join a community and there's people there who might be where you want to be at some point in the future, and who've been through what you've been through, whether you're transitioning or you're looking to kind of whatever your goals are. So I think that's a fantastic suggestion. I mean, in terms of joining a community, because that's so important.
Yeah.
Now, Edward, when we previously chatted, you made this comparison between AI to street photography. So
Yes.
can you please expand on that analogy for the viewers?
Okay, now's the time to take the glasses off. So I can't actually see anything, but I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So for anybody who we've been around now the last few months, and it's all been about COVID, and we've had to stay at home, or we've had to, we can't travel. So one of my passions is street photography. I'm not very good at it, but what street photography is, I'll give you an example. You're walking along the street. Perhaps it's raining, and you can see some raindrops underneath someone's foot, and you think, oh, that could be a good photo. And then you notice there are 3 or 4 people all doing the same thing, and you think, perhaps I could just take a picture of everybody's feet walking in the rain. You take a few shots, maybe a few dozen shots. You get home, and then you have to start editing that information. Once you start editing, you might find out of that there's one shot that really makes a difference. You say, right, that's the one. You work at it, you refine it, and then finally you have a great photo, which is a street photography photo. Now, I'll make a contrast with AI. Right. As you move around in the world, there is data everywhere. Now, what can you frame from that? That is one of the challenges. There's data there. So let's say you decide you want to look at customer churn in a telecom. There's a lot of information. Why do customers switch? Why don't they switch? There's a lot of info. So you decide to listen or have systems that listen to all the conversations. You look at all of their accounts, and you build yourself a data set. This is the equivalent of the world looking through as a street photographer. And then you have to take some samples, and you've got to refine. Maybe you build a model around that. And finally, you come out with an answer. Now, you know that answer is not perfect. So you're going to have to go through the loop again, maybe refine and refine and refine, and finally you get something that you can then present and say, this is why, to my best knowledge at this time, with this model, why people are leaving or churning. So what I'm saying is the comparison between street photography and AI is there is a sea of data. What we can do with that is the question, and we can build tools and model to kind of get the best out of that.
Love that analogy. Yeah, I don't know much about street photography myself, Edward, but I do have a friend who's really into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, whenever we're hanging out or anything, he's always like looking for these opportunities on. Okay, what shots can I take? Or and you never know when that opportunity is going to come. So
he's walking around like this, with his camera,
yeah,
and it's kind of annoying. He's always looking everywhere. But that's
exactly.
And you can do the same with AI. There is so much you can do with it. There's actually too much. When you want to build systems or do something, there's too much data almost, but it needs to be ordered, and we need to, move in kind of an orderly, process-oriented fashion.
Awesome. Fantastic. So we have some more comments here. So before I go to the next question, just a few more shout outs. We got Bhavya in the house. Good to see you here, Bhavya. Anmol says, hey, everybody. We got Sudeep. We got Sumit. Fantastic. Oh, we got Taiwo in the house. Good to see you here, Taiwo.
Hi.
Good to have you here. And we got Syed. We got Elham. Good to see you. Syed says, join a community. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's what Edward was saying before us. Right? Very, very, very important for sure, right? Absolutely. And we got Obi as well. Obi's in the house. Good to see you here, Obi. Thanks.
Obi, hi. Thank you, Obi, for linking us up with Dean. And I know you said to me yesterday you have a lot of questions. We'll see.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see. Hey, let's put Edward in the hot seat, folks. So any questions you have about AI, feel free to put in the comments. All right. So moving on to the next question that I had for you, Edward. Now, another thing that we kind of chatted about when we spoke before is you mentioned that those looking to start a career in AI should quote unquote build something. Now, what do you mean by this, Edward, and why is this important?
Yeah. So building something, again, let's look at the last months that we have. So there's a lot of ways that you can find out how to get into AI. And one of the paths is perhaps joining a boot camp and maybe looking through things like Kaggle. Kaggle is a huge repository of data sets and competitions and code and so on. A lot of people go there and they start to learn. They do a lot of exercises and then they say, hey, I'm a data scientist. Now, yeah. So it's a bit like going to university or college and doing all the exercises and passing everything and then saying, hey, I'm an engineer now. You're not. The thing is, you need to actually do something and maybe even make some mistakes, but you need to learn in a practical manner. And so what we're finding is that in terms of building something, one of the hardest things in data science is actually getting data which is, useful data, or taking data that you've been given and making it useful. Just the process of going through that in many data science jobs, that's about 50 to 70% of the job. It isn't the sexy stuff of building models. Yeah. So if you have a passion or something like that, you can actually build your own data set, analyze something. And the thing is, it's really, once you're linked with your own data, that's a really good thing for an employer to know that you have started from scratch. You didn't go to Kaggle or somewhere else and pick up something that's already been pre-processed. Yeah. It's like getting a pre-cooked chicken. So go through the process of building a data set and answering a question. This is the minimum. Build your own data set, refine it, fight with it, and then answer a business question. Put that into some kind of production. Maybe build a front end on the front of it so that someone who knows nothing about what you've done can just go into your front end, maybe put in their own request, and like on any query system, and it comes back with an answer. You can say, hey, that's cool. How did you do that? And now you actually can say, well, these are the 7 steps I took to build that, and here is the answer. And that really shows that you understand the data science process, building of what AI needs from start to finish. And if you do that, it proves it. If you do the exercises, it's a maybe. And companies are looking for people who can prove that they've actually built something.
Wow. I mean, I especially love what you said, Edward, about building something and then answering a business question. I mean, this is so important, right? Because it's one thing if you're passionate about AI, you know your stuff, you can build stuff. But if you're not communicating how this can add some kind of a business value to an organization, I mean, you're just someone who's just really passionate about something, right? So I think that's
Exactly.
so crucial, like answering a business question and building something. I mean, that's something you can show, and then answering the question.
And you can do that in almost any field.
Yeah.
You can even build a chatbot. A better chatbot than FedEx have done for me. Yeah. Get the data. I mean, I'll give you a great example. There was a guy in a boot camp that I attended. A couple of years ago at Brain Station. Sorry to throw that in, but I've got to say it because it was amazing.
Yeah. Right.
What he did, he was really into fitness, and he wanted to do something with artificial intelligence. And if you've ever been in a gym and you have a personal trainer, they're always correcting you.
Yeah, that's right.
And he said, I want to find a way of doing that without an expensive personal trainer. So he actually created his own data set of him doing, I think he was doing curls.
Yeah.
And he created a data set of thousands and thousands of shots, frames of video with him doing curls. And he then trained an AI model to show you whether you're doing them in the right form.
Get out of here. Oh my God.
It was incredible. I don't remember his name. If he ever watches this, he'll say, amazing. Oh. So he built his own data set. He was passionate about the gym and, having muscles and so on. And this kind of thing is just, 2 years ago, I can still remember it. I saw that and I thought, wow. So imagine this kind of person then going into a company to do something else. I mean, that he has, that kind of drive and it wasn't easy what he was doing, the data set. It wasn't easy at all, but it was great. So building something is really important, and it really shows that you know the process. And he put it into production live, so you can actually test it yourself. Wow,
I mean that's so cool, right? And this definitely, I believe, answers a business question, because I'm sure a lot of gyms there are customers that they can upsell, the personal training aspect. Yeah. This could be some alternative that they can sell as an app, as part of a package or something like that. So if you were to position it like that, I mean, that's a great business benefit to the gym as well.
Yeah, think about that. That was pre-COVID. So imagine, he's probably a millionaire now.
He probably is.
But yeah, it was so something as simple as doing arm curls. You can build your own data set. I for instance, I like baseball, and I know there are some people who like collecting little cards and so on. Right. And one of the problems there is you have to send them away to America to be graded and then to be packaged in order to prove it. Now, it's also possible to maybe take some cameras and camera images and do some work with that. This is one of the ideas I've had that maybe someone will help me with, to create a data set where you can actually do that. And that will save a lot of money. Grading a car takes maybe $50. And if you can bring that down to $4, just from, building your own data sets, it's a chance.
Wow. Amazing. So now, Edward, moving on to the next question. Now, what are some reasons as to why AI is not being implemented as rapidly as it could be at business and corporate environments?
Great question. That's what people always say. Great question. No, it's genuinely a great question. Let's just think it's always the same. Technology is not the driver of business. Business is the driver for technology. That's the first thing. So if you imagine every new piece of technology that comes into a company or is available for a company to think about, there's usually a CTO, someone on the C-level, who has to then convince the other people on the C-level, maybe the head of finance, the head of marketing, the head of legal, all of those people, that, hey, this could be a good thing for the company. Now, most of those people are thinking about how to keep the company running and how to keep it growing. And that means stability to some extent. And bringing in new technology into a company usually includes change management. And change management is not easy, and it also takes time. So if you just go back and you think about, if you're old enough and you can think about when mobile phones were first allowed into companies, it took 5, 6, 7, 8 years before it was kind of standard to have your iPhone with company data on it. Before that, it just wasn't allowed. And as you move forward, even things like having cameras switched on for video inside of a company, a corporate. That took years before it was accepted that you could actually have a video call while being in your company. So it's the same with AI. There's so much change. And the other part is there's a lot of disruption that could be caused. I mean, if you start automating processes, even just bringing a chatbot into a customer service department, there will be some people who will say, hey, that's going to take away my job. So the management has to handle that change of how fast they bring that technology in, who learns about the new technology, who can be enhanced with that new technology, and so on and so forth. And that's just a small example. It takes time to put technology in. Also, there's a risk. What if we rely on this? Just an example, a couple of days ago, I don't know if you use anything from Google, it was yesterday or the day before, Google had an outage for about an hour globally. So all companies and everybody that did anything to do with Google, I think it's like 5 a.m. My wife told me she wakes up early. She said, hey, Google's not working or YouTube doesn't work. Yeah. And so if you are relying on all the AI technology from one large company or a number of companies, there's some risk. How do you offset that risk? So it's not a case of it's very risky, but it just takes time to get used to things. And it takes years usually.
Okay, gotcha. So Edward, would you say and I'm kind of generalizing here, but would you say AI is kind of, taking baby steps at the moment in terms of, being implemented across the board? Yes.
I think it will come a bit like a wave. It comes in waves. Things go incrementally. AI is creeping in. I mean, again, lots of people have an Amazon Echo or a Google Dot or all of these different listening devices in their homes. That technology has been, built up over many, many years. But to actually release something that allows a consumer to have this kind of artificial intelligence technology in their home is a big deal. Yeah. So it's a drip. Even before that, we had spell checkers on our phones. Then now I use a Google phone, so I have Google Lens. If I hold that up, it will tell me what I'm looking at, how much it costs, and all of this. I actually have to switch off, but that's also AI. And if you tried to implement that kind of technology 5-10 years ago, there'll be a lot of people saying, "Hey, this is invading my privacy." But now people are saying, "No, it's okay." Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So I do see some questions here. So Pratik, Sudeep, and Martin, I'm not ignoring you guys. Well, we're gonna get into the question shortly, but we do have a couple of shout outs here. Sandeep says, hello, Dean and Edward. Thanks for tuning in, Sandeep. Great to see you here.
Hi.
Martin says, hello. Good to see you here, Martin.
Hi.
And Obi says, hi again. Awesome. And then Fola says, technology is not the driver of business. Business is the driver of technology. Thumbs up. Yeah, I love that. I love that statement you made, Edward. I think that's so accurate, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we got Hacky in the house. That's my stepbrother right there. Thanks for tuning in.
Hi, man.
There's great discussion. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, man. All right. So moving on to the next question, Edward, and keep the questions coming, folks. We're gonna get into the questions portion shortly. Now, Edward, what role does product and project management play in AI, and why is it important for us to be aware of this?
You just AI or technology by itself is not creating a product of any sort. You always have to have some kind of product-based process in order to implement something from AI. If you want to have a startup company, you can do what you like, but eventually you probably need to sell some service or some product. So you need product people, whether they're called product owners, product managers, or they have the mentality of product owners and product managers. You need to be able to drive that. The technology alone isn't enough. So I can give you an example from one of the competitions that I entered. Myself and a couple of people, we had a look at media literacy because we see that media literacy is really a big challenge in the world. We have so much information overloading us, And we need to be conscious of what we're actually reading and listening to and so on. So, we have the technology using NLP, which is natural language processing, so AI and text-based processing, to build something that could analyze content from newspapers or even text messages or so on, or Twitters, and say that's fake news, it's not fake news, it's biased, it's not biased.
Yeah.
Now, having the technology was there, but we needed to create that into a story, into a product. So that was one of my roles, is to actually help to shape a product. And we created something which was a bias-based product, so that you could actually type in some text or some tweet or some whatever, and it will come back and tell you how biased it was. And that's something that's really useful in the media literacy environment, perhaps in schools for younger people, and even for people who are in politics or marketing messages. So you need to build products around the technology. The technology is always going to be there. It gets better and better. Some we have to throw away. It morphs. But the business problems, they're usually there. And we need to solve those. So product people are necessary. And project people, project managers are really necessary, because I've been a very technical person in my past life. If you give me technology, I will stay in the basement for months and be in love with the technology. But actually what I need to be doing is being attached to some kind of product or project in order to make that really live. And that's where you bring in a project manager that, has the discipline to help you to, to have a start and a finish. And then, maybe not to overdevelop something. Hey, look, it's stopped. Let's go. Let's put this out, or let's test this. So you need a full gamut of, and I'm not even going to say the positions, but the mentality. You need those people with the mentality.
Awesome. And going back to that that sounds like, so was that one of the competitions you won? You and your team won, Edward?
Yeah. I was in a team with someone called Willie Costello and someone called Nicholas Broad.
Awesome.
I want to give them both the credit, because they did most of the building. But it was something that Willie was really passionate about, media literacy. And we said, hey, we can build something around this using AI, natural language processing. So we built some models, we refined them, we tested them, and we used real-time information, actually, new tweets from various politicians just to check the validity. And yeah, it was working really, really well. So
that's amazing. I love that. And you know what? I think that would be a great product for the staffing and HR industry as well, because when you're creating job descriptions, you got to make sure that you're using language that's, not discriminative or anything of that sort. So I think this will be a great product for the staffing industry as well, or human resources. So that was a fantastic project.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a company that is actually looking at the way you get interviewed, and it's doing videos looking at your face to see if you're genuine. But it's also adding in cultural aspects as well, because different cultures have different expressions. So they're using a lot of learning and a lot of data. Brilliant idea. From a couple of guys that I met 3 years ago near IBM. Yeah.
Wow, folks, I don't know, but this is so exciting. Things that are happening that are possible. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So Edward, can you, when we, at least when I think about AI, I'm also thinking about, there are probably certain issues about ethics and diversity and all that stuff. So can you speak about some of the key issues in relation to ethics and diversity within AI?
Yeah, that's unfortunately, AI reflects society. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your viewpoint. But AI often reflects society, and the way the products and services and the data are built should reflect society. But that isn't always the case. And quite often, there's various kinds of biases, whether it's on race, on gender, on sexual preference, and religious. There's lots of biases that are in life today. Black Lives Matters earlier this year has shown that there are people that are against that. But when it comes to building systems in AI, you usually are going to start from the data and from data sets. And if you want to be representative of the people that you're selling products to or you're building products to, your data sets should often reflect that. And a lot of the time, that isn't the case. We do know that statistically, the industry, tech industry, is not as colored, with colored in terms of diverse as it should be to reflect society. And that means also the data sets for the testing often aren't as diverse. And there is a pretty well-known aspect of some guys who developed, and I'm going to say white tech guys, who developed a system for hand dryers, automatic hand dryers, that can detect to start or stop when you put underneath, you put your hand underneath, which is a great idea.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when they released this, the first tests were not working on people with slightly darker skin. And the reason is because their data sets did not include people with darker skin. So the device didn't work very well for them. Wow. And that reflected the diversity of the teams that developed the product. It reflected the software that they used. It reflected the data sets, and it probably reflected the decision makers in the company that would go through that and say, yes, this product's ready to go. So in terms of bias, if you build bias into the data and the data set that's used to create the products, and then the processes are also biased, then you're going to have products that will keep bias in them when they come out. And it's very hard, as you know, you need to fix problems early, or build unbuild the biases in very early, not at the end, because it's practically impossible at the end to take that bias out of a product. And we have, this is an effect across the industry. There are, I'm happy to say, people talking about this, and they're also building checklists and kind of protocols to help to. I mean, if you're building a system, you need to know that it's biased. We all have unconscious bias, but if you have some kind of way of checking, benchmarking to say, oh, my system, okay, I've tested it against this. All right, it's 50% biased. I need to do something about that. At least you're conscious that you need to do something about your data sets or your systems. And so I think the industry is slowly moving in a direction. Obviously not fast enough, but it is happening. And, as we build more and more systems with bias built in, of course, AI systems, they learn from other AI systems as well. That would be the ideal. Right. So you've got to get it right early rather than late.
Wow. This is quite I mean, I think we can pretty much do a whole conversation just about this. Yes. I mean, there's so many. I mean, such a great topic, right? And by the way, folks, I do see some questions in. So Sumit, I see your question. Suhas, I see your question. We're gonna get around to the question shortly. Now, moving on to mentorship, Edward, can you speak on the role of the mentor as an advocate, and how important is mentorship to those looking to start out or continue growing within the AI space?
Mentorship is important for life, I would say. I actually run or lead a mentoring scheme. I can talk about that a little bit later. But it's for career development for people who are project managers in the PMI Toronto. So we run a couple of programs a year for that. But mentorship is important for anytime you're learning something new. It's really useful to have a mentor or to find a mentor, because it can fast track you. You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But wouldn't it be great to have a guide that's also saying, okay, go along there, try this out. And once you've made your mistake, they can actually talk to you about that. Mentorship's a great thing. And AI is new for many, many people. It's super new. So if you can have access to the people who are already doing work in the AI areas, that's a fantastic asset for you. And finding mentors is, I would say the communities are generally quite giving. People who are experts are giving their time, they're giving their ideas, and they're giving their guidance. So it's actually great. Someone can actually go into a community and fast track a bit, and show that their enthusiasm to build data sets, solve business problems. Even if I talk about business, even on the non-profit side, there are organizations that can mentor you if you want to do something for social good as well. So, but all of these things leads to the point, AI systems should be learning, but so should you. And having a mentor is always a help.
Powerful statement. So can you say that again? I just want to make sure that the viewers heard that.
You mean about AI systems learning systems? In general, AI systems, you want them to learn so that they can refine the models, and you can help to refine the models and give better answers. But they are learning, and so should you be learning.
Wow, love that.
So having a mentor is helping you to fast track your learning.
Love that, Edward. I hope you folks wrote that down, because that's the killer quote right there. I love that.
I'll trademark it.
yeah, you better do that. Yeah. And Edward, just real quick, you mentioned something that really stood out as well. You said that getting mentorship is for life. So, so would you say, Edward, what you're saying is, hey, getting a mentor is not just if you're starting out your career or if you're a junior level individual. Like, this is something you got to do throughout your career, even when you're like a senior level individual.
Definitely. Absolutely. How to say 100%. I usually say to people, you should get 3 mentors as you go along in your life. Or have 3 mentors, almost like your little background crowd behind you. So your first your nearest mentor is someone that perhaps is pretty close to what you're actually doing right now, and is helping you to guide you to the next step. It could even be a peer who's, helping you to see in a wider way. Yeah. You then have also another mentor who's a bit more strategic. Perhaps you want to change your career or you want to move on, and they're going to be someone that you're going to have maybe spend a few hours with over the next year or so, but probably not on the longer term. And then you have someone who's a longer strategic mentor, who's going to really help to change your life. It could be one phone call every 3 years, but you've got a big decision to make, perhaps in your career or something, a pivot, and they have the wisdom to advise you. Again, a mentor is not telling you what to do; they're advising you. You have to take the decision, but they can widen your parameters and your scope. If I talk about mentors in the AI area, sometimes I have junior people who ask me, hey, I need to learn about something in supply chain and AI. And so I can tell them, I don't know it, but I do know someone who does know something about that. Find out a bit more about that person, talk to them, make sure you talk about them to them before you talk about yourself. And it's very important to do that.
Very true.
And once you do that, and you show that, one, you have some interest in them and what they do, plus you have some interest of contributing something, then maybe you can build a relationship that they can help you to build yourself. And this is a general point, for mentorship. So that's a good way to pivot on. I can tell you about a mentor that I had, 10, 12 years ago, someone who I actually know. She probably doesn't remember, but she helped me to make a decision from going to becoming a CTO in a medium-sized bank, taking less money but having more potential, rather than going on to a pretty big contract in another company, which now actually doesn't even exist anymore. Wow. But at that time, she gave me that advice to go for the difficult journey to get experience, and it changed my life. So, it's important to have mentors, even if they're for very short time periods, and strategic.
Awesome. I love that. I totally agree with you, Edward. And you get some great advice there. And clearly you yourself have benefited from having great mentors. So
absolutely.
Great advice there. Edward, you shared so much great information. So we're going to get into the questions shortly. But before we get into that, Edward, I did want to ask you, can you let the viewers know more about how they can follow you or connect with you, for those of the viewers who want to network with you, or what's the best way to connect with you professionally?
Oh, I would say LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day. in some shape or form. I probably write an article a week. I always, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Edward A_Johnson on LinkedIn. I'm probably the only one with those initials and layout. But I always say to people, because I have a lot of people trying to connect, I don't like to respond to someone who just sends and says, I want to connect. Yeah. I would ask people, please read about what I'm doing, or have a look at some of my articles and come with a question. Or with something, and I'm really happy to engage when that's the case, because we all have a journey, we're all trying to do better, and it's difficult to separate the people between those who are really unique and those who don't want to be unique. And I'm really happy to build relationships with people who are genuinely interested, and not just throwing out requests here and there and getting likes and so on. So and please, let's talk about AI, blockchain, career development, what you're passionate about, how you're going to build a data set, why you're building a data set which is to do with, I don't know, different brands of potatoes. I had one of my colleagues, he was in one of my classes. I used to think he was super introvert. And he built a data set which was predicting what the next Pokemon cards would be.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing what it was mind blowing. And so, if you saw this guy, he probably wouldn't speak to you because he'd be under his hoodie. Yeah. Because he's pretty shy, but everyone has something. And that's what I think when people are going to connect with me, bring what you have, bring something unique, because everyone has it.
Love that advice. Love that advice for sure, Edward. Now, I did want to ask you. You mentioned blockchain. I know blockchain is your other passion.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Can I invite you again and have you speak about blockchain with all of us?
Next year, yes.
Next year. All right. So, folks,
absolutely. I want to complete the building of the product that I am building. It's to do with art and to do with blockchain on e-commerce, and I want to complete at least phase 2 of that product, because then I can actually talk through it. So that's
Gotcha. All right. So, folks, I'm gonna do my best to get Edward to join us again next year and have him talk about blockchain. That's his other passion, and that he's really enthusiastic about. Now, final question for you, Edward, is you're quite involved with PMI as a mentor. Obviously that's how we met previously. Yes. So how can any viewers watching who want to be part of that program or receive mentorship, where can they get more information about that, or how can they kind of proceed in regards to that?
Okay, so currently it's a great time to be present, because the program that I lead, which is called the Career Accelerator Program, has just opened registrations for February. We run programs. So if you want to, get into this program, or at least ask about this program, go to the website pmitoronto.ca/CA program. That's Career Accelerator Program. And there is another program, which is so my programs are, 3 months long, pretty intense. And there is another program which we call the Professional Mentoring Program, which is 6 months long. Less intense, but also as valuable in the terms of the relationship. So you can also apply for that one. So go to the Toronto PMI website. It's pmitoronto.ca, and have a look in there at look for professional mentoring or career accelerator or career development, and you will see the programs. They'll have all the details and the FAQs there.
Awesome, fantastic. So, folks, make sure you check it out, and I'm gonna get into the questions now.
Okay, great.
Do you have a couple of minutes for the questions?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Perfect, awesome. So we got a question here from Sudeep. So a shout out to Sudeep. Thanks for tuning in. So Sudeep says, "Hi, Edward. I have one query as a developer. I am a Java cloud applications developer. However, I have a great interest on machine learning and AI. How to start and how to shift my career?"
Well, as I said, number one, join the community. Can I give the name of a community?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, feel free to go ahead.
So a shout out to the Aggregate Intellect, otherwise known as ACE. This is one of the best communities. that is in Toronto. There are others for sure, and I'm not saying the others are no good, but this one is really good because it's very wide. They have, all the research papers. They have I think there's up to 20 different streams which are looking at different aspects of AI. They run also competitions, capstones, and so on. But the main thing, and they have a Slack channel, it's pretty active. I think they have over 600 people even just now. Perhaps it's 1,000. But there are a lot of people. You'll find everybody in there for every flavor. So I would just go there first. It's free to log in. Have a look around. Join the Slack channel maybe and start talking to people, because you will find people who are like you, who've probably done the path that you're looking to do, and they can advise you already, and they'll be happy to chat with you. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I would start looking at some free courses on what is AI about. Finland, for instance, the country of Finland did a course which was about 10 hours long, really easy, very nice. It was for their general population, and it really gets you into that. But that's just another course. Coursera, Udemy, they all have courses. LinkedIn Learning for sure has courses. So if you're on premium, just do that as well. So I would say that's a great way to shift. You can also look at boot camps. Some of them are pretty expensive, for in-person or even, like 10, 12 weeks. They take a long time. But some of them are really, really good as well. I did the Brain Station one. I mean, they are excellent. But you need to be building as you go along. As I keep saying, you got to build as you go along. So select something that allows you to build as you go along. And if you're looking also for mentors, there are a couple of ways you can actually get mentors as well. But I would say it's important to speak to people who've done what you're already trying to do. And if you're in a certain domain, even better. If you, I don't know if you're in supply chain or finance or retail or telecom, but in there, it's even better. That's where I would start.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks, Edward. Sudeep, hope that helped. And thanks for your question. Great question there. So moving on, we got a question from Martin. So shout out to Martin.
Hey, Martin.
So Martin says, when I think of AI, I only think of robots. Is it applicable to engineering or finance?
Oh, it's so applicable. It's so applicable. So let me pick one of my favorites is insurance, which is sometimes some people say insurance is really boring. It's not. So if you've got a car or you've been in a car before and that crashes, you're probably going to have to take it to a crash center to be assessed by the garage, and you have to talk to your insurance to see if they're going to pay and how much they'll pay. Now, things have moved on. Now you can take a photo of the damage and send it to the crash center. Hey, well, what they're doing is the good ones are using AI to intelligently look in detail at the damage and make an assessment, a probability assessment of how much that's going to cost. And off you go to the garage and they pay for that. So that's on insurance. And insurance are being more and more precise about how close they get to the right cost for that damage. It's pretty intricate to do, but they're using a lot of, kind of video simulations, photo simulations, and I've been involved in using some technology called GAN, which is actually, it's a generative adversarial networks. And this is used to simulate any kind of crash and how it would look and what the effects are. You can use it for that. Obviously, I haven't gone through the billions of combinations, but AI can help to generate those kind of things. So, there's all kinds of each industry has an interesting set of areas, and you can investigate.
Awesome, fantastic. So Martin, hope that helps, and thanks for your question, and appreciate you tuning in today. We got a question here from Sumit. So Sumit, shout out to Sumit. Thanks for tuning in. Sumit says, great discussion. I feel knowledge, understanding of AI is relevant even for people from a non-tech background.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on what are the various ways one can utilize knowledge on AI as we move forward? I know you've kind of already touched on this, Edward, but any additional thoughts?
I'm not sure I understand the question exactly of how we can use it. There are so many use cases for the use of AI, and it really depends, again, on industry. So which industry are you from? Did you say?
No, he didn't mention that. But I guess what Sumit is asking, Edward, is probably that I guess he's from a non-tech background. So he's asking how non-tech people can utilize their knowledge of AI as they move forward. Maybe something.
Okay, yeah. So one thing that's really important to note is that AI will not get anywhere without the non-tech people. AI is not being used for the sake of technical people who like to create stuff. It gets nowhere otherwise. So if you are, for instance, within your industry, there are always going to be opportunities for AI to be used. Now, again, I don't know which industry you're in, but if you're non-tech, I would suggest again to do a very short, easy AI course, which kind of leads you into AI so that you understand what narrow AI and what general AI is and what the potential of those things are. Perhaps you can look at it in terms of robotic automation for your job. I'm not saying that you'll be out of a job, but you could start to think about how can I automate certain areas of my job? Does it make sense that I get lots and lots of things coming in to process and I do them over and over again when maybe a robot or a robotic process could do that? And if my company wanted to think about doing that, do I want to be the first person to help them, to be the domain expert that helps them to do that? Or do I want to just sit back and be the person that watches as someone else implements that?
Yeah, good point.
So ideally, you want to be at the forefront. So if you know your role and you know your job well, which I presume you do, then there's usually a way of thinking about how AI could be used to enhance that, or I'm not going to say take it over, but I'd say enhance. Usually it's enhance.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And yeah, folks, hey, competitive advantage, right? You got to think about how you can use that to your advantage as well. So great question, Sumit. Thanks for tuning in.
Let me sorry, Dean, just to add on to that.
Yeah, sure.
What I just said doesn't mean that you have to learn to code.
Yeah.
Either. Yeah. I mean, I know that everyone is saying, hey, everyone should code. Coding isn't everything. There needs also to be organization and there needs also to be domain knowledge.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That's a great point, Edward, because a lot of people do think, yeah, I got to learn coding. So great point there. Sumit, thanks for your question. We got a question here from Suhas. Suhas says, hi, Dean. Suhas here. I am a BA. Is RPA the same as AI?
You're a BA, business analyst, I presume.
Yeah.
RPA, what's that, robotic process automation? Yeah. No, robotic process automation is not the same as AI. AI can encompass that, but it's not a one-to-one relationship. As a BA, of course, you're very used to mapping out processes, communicating what processes are, and making things clear in communicatable form for people who need to then make decisions. You have a big role in RPA, I would say, because RPA only works when you can clarify processes. So I would, if I were in your shoes, I would be very interested in RPA as a possible pivot later on. So I would start looking at what is AI anyway, looking at what the potential of RPA is, and I personally would be doing a side project already, that involves RPA in my environment, whatever that might be. That's what I would be doing.
Awesome, fantastic. So Suhas, I hope that helps. Edward, you're okay with a couple of more questions?
Absolutely, yeah. I could keep going until another 3 hours.
Okay, perfect.
But I know that's not going to be the case.
Right. So shout out to this person. Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't show the name, but great. I guess we have a question here. So this person asks, where do you think is the gap when it comes to implementing AI in businesses? Also, if you're a data analyst interested in using AI to augment business processes, what's a good way and easy way to start looking for resources and areas where you can use AI? What tools or resources would you suggest we should start looking into when we are just getting started with considering artificial intelligence in different departments? So maybe a couple of questions there.
There's a lot of stuff in there. I don't know where to start, to be honest. Can you give me a hint of where I should start? Because there's like 8 questions in there.
Yeah, okay.
Tools and so on. I mean, well, okay. I mean, start coding in Python or Go is something. If you're into coding, just start with those two. That's a really easy start, I would say. Easy, relatively easy. If you're someone who codes, you know how to program. It's just a matter of which language will you use. So start off with that. Have a look at some modules, to do things that you're already doing so that you can see what an equivalent is. And then I would say maybe branch out into other types of AI technology that you like. Some people are into graphs. Some people are into stuff to do with text. Some people are into, stuff that is creating or generating. Others into learning systems, reinforcements. There's so many buzzwords, but I would say, start coding if that's what you're into, and then branch, specialize. Now, for the other questions, please go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, so the other question was, if you're a data analyst interested in using AI to augment business processes, what's a good and easy way to start looking for resources?
Oh, okay. So if you're a data analyst, I presume you're already looking at data, quite a lot of data. And you should maybe talk more with the people you work with or work for to see what they want to do in the future. Because I believe if you're a data analyst, you're creating results for people to look at, and then they make the decisions. But maybe talk to them or talk to their peers, as to what they see as the future in your company or in another company. And again, I would say when you join a community of AI people, those are the kind of questions you can get an answer to straight away, and you can get more than one answer to them. So it's a very wide question that you've asked.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all. And that's something about AI that I think people really should understand. There isn't like one straight path to get everything. It's wide. It's like a hydra. It goes in all different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for that, Edward, and hope that answers the question to the person who asked that.
Yeah.
We got feedback here. Someone says, thank you so much for the advice on mentors. Really helpful. Yeah, that was fantastic.
I'm happy about that. Yes.
Yeah, that was fantastic advice you shared, Edward. We got Fola here, says, talk about them to them before you talk about yourself. Yeah, I love that as well.
Yes.
That was a fantastic piece of advice. And if I may add, not just to mentors, folks, just when you're networking in general, I think that's fantastic advice that Edward shared. Talk to them about them. That's always a good practice.
I learned that from you, Dean.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the things I remember when we had our very first conversation.
Yes.
We talked about that. I mean, I do it in general anyway, but I remember that was one of the things, I remember saying to Obi, I spoke to Dean and he mentioned it's really important to build that relationship first. That kind of talk about them and then talk to them. So I was like, I'm going to keep that one.
Okay, awesome, fantastic. So we got Kayur. He said he's joining in from Ottawa. Good to have you here, Kayur.
Nice.
Carrie, we got Carrie. Hey, Carrie, good to see you here as usual. Carrie says CAP is a fantastic program.
Great. I'm so happy to hear that. We just finished one, and last night we were actually going through what can we do better for the next program. I'm always looking to improve, always, even if we have great ratings for our mentoring programs, I want them to get even better over time. A bit like the way you do with AI. You want to have it more precise or just responding to the data even in a better way.
Awesome, fantastic. So Carrie, thanks again for dropping in. We got Obi. So Obi shared the link for the PMI CAP program.
Thank you.
The link right there. So it's www.pmitoronto.ca/CA program. Make sure you check it out, folks. I guess Marcos tuning in from YouTube is asking, do you have any recommended courses online or in Toronto? Well, I guess Edward gave a couple of examples already, Marcos, in terms of, check out Udemy, Coursera, as well as LinkedIn Learning. So make sure you check that out. Unless there's anything you want to add, Edward, I'll move on to the next question.
Move on to the next question. Andrew Ng is Andrew NG is a very famous Coursera educator, and he has a number of courses that are specialized. Go there. It's like a go-to for many people in the industry.
Awesome. Andrew NG, awesome. So Marcos, hope that helps. Martin says, yes, sir. LinkedIn Learning, awesome.
Yeah. Martin.
Martin says, build your brand. So we got a question from Haki. So Haki says, hey, how applicable is AI to healthcare?
Very, very applicable. Oh my God. I mean, as you can see, I'm super excited right now.
Yeah.
We're right there. Have you seen now we've had a number of vaccines that have been developed at record speed. AI has been used to do that. what you can, I mean, just as an example, if you want to develop something in some kind of vaccine or medicine or anything, you've got a number of processes that you need to go through. Now, previously or many years ago, you would have to do that. You couldn't simulate, and then systems were learned to simulate what would happen if. Now, if you have to multiply that by billions of attempts, you can't do that. AI is helping with learning systems to be able to do that. I was involved with a project, which unfortunately I can no longer talk about because it's going to be taken over by some investors and so on. But it was about augmenting some data for a particular type of cancers. So, and we needed to use, we need to simulate some data for that. We just couldn't do that because you couldn't find enough people who had that type of cancer in order to have a data set. So you can use AI to do all kinds of things. And one of the cool things about AI, especially in healthcare, is you can simulate things like cells. You can simulate all kinds of things without the privacy issues necessarily of real human owners. Because if you can synthesize, cells which don't belong to a real person, it can also help you with building classifiers and other things like that. So there are millions of applications for AI in healthcare. Believe me, if you're in healthcare, please connect with me because there's lots of stuff we can talk about.
There you have it. So Haki, make sure you connect with Edward. All right. So another question here. Well, I guess we got some feedback. So Martin says thanks, and Sumit says. Yeah, Sumit says, so domain expertise along with knowledge of AI. Thanks. Awesome. Good to see you got the information out of that. Suhas says, great, Edward. Thanks a ton.
You're welcome.
Then we got, the LinkedIn username that's not appearing is me, Sundis. Oh, okay, Sundis. Yeah, good to see you here, Sundis. And she says, thank you so much for answering the questions. Very grateful for all the information you have provided, Edward.
My pleasure.
Awesome. And then we got a comment from Roya. Roya says, the CAP program, which Edward and all are running, is a fantastic and ever-improving program. I'm one of the mentors who enjoys and learns a lot.
Oh, happy to have you on board. Hey, that's great. Hope to see you in February.
Awesome. Fantastic. So, Roy, thanks for that feedback. And that's pretty much all for the questions. Edward, you spent over an hour with us. Thank you so much. There's been such great feedback just in the comments, and you shared so much great information about this very exciting space. I learned so much. And I'm pretty sure the viewers and those who joined in and tuned in got so much great information. So really appreciate your time, Edward, and taking the time to answer all the questions. Folks, make sure you thank Edward in the comments. And I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to get Edward back with us again next year, maybe to talk about blockchain or anything else. And we'll definitely love to have you back again, Edward. And again, thanks so much for your time. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and hope everyone has a fantastic week. Edward, have a fantastic week as well, and thanks again.
You too. Thanks a lot. All the best, everybody. Cheers.
All right. Bye, everyone. Happy holidays.
Bye.